Hello everyone, hope all of you are safe and healthy. Friends, as many of you are coming up with good number of doubts, we are planning a live doubt clearing session and all of you are welcomed and I request all of you to make the best use of it. Now, coming to the IAS Baba's rapid revision series for prelims 2021, this is session 41 and day 57 and the topics we have are Indian polity, government schemes and parliamentary committees. So, these are the hot topics we are going to discuss, that is the first two are the part of parliamentary committees. The part 1 we have taken in the previous class, and now the Committee on Public Sector Undertakings and Committee on Subordinate Legislations and Department Related Standing Committees. Then Production Linked Incentive Scheme, then Swamitwa Scheme and Aspirational Districts Program and the Ranked Choice Voting System. This is similar to proportional representation, we will discuss. Then Bodoland Territorial Council, then Karbi Anglong Autonomous District Council and the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council, and lastly the right to recall. Coming to the first one, the Committee on Public Sector Undertakings. Friends, why was it in news? Because the Committee on Public Undertakings had opposed the privatization of profit-making PSUs and also the corporatization of public sector banks. So, these two issues were hotly debated in the last year and the before last year. So, that is why the committee becomes important. Now, the year of establishment of the committee, it was established in 1964 on the recommendation of Krishna Menon Committee, and the starting strength of the committee was 15 members, that is 10 members from Lok Sabha and 5 from Rajya Sabha. And now currently it has 22 members, that is 15 from Lok Sabha and 7 from Rajya Sabha. Then election of the members. So, the members of the Committee on Public Sector Undertakings, they are elected by Parliament every year with a proportional representation system through a single transferable vote. So, this is once again a proportional representation. Then terms of office, it is 1 year. So, every year the election to Committee on Public Undertakings, it takes place. Then chairman, the speaker appoints the chairman from amongst the members, and member from Rajya Sabha is not chosen as the chairman. So, always it is the member of a Lok Sabha who goes on to become the member of Committee on Public Sector Undertakings can be appointed as the chairman. Then function, the function of the Committee on Public Sector Undertakings is to examine the accounts, CAG reports, then policy measures and performances of public sector undertakings. So, whatever policy measures and the account books of the PSUs and the CAG reports of the PSUs and the performance, the efficiency and the financial expenditure and all those things of PSUs, and in overall the nitty-gritties of PSUs will be taken care by the Public Sector Undertakings Committee. Then come to next one, the Committee on Subordinate Legislation. So, it is currently having 15 members and all are from Rajya Sabha. Once again friends, do not by heart why all are from Rajya Sabha, because this committee requires some expertise and that is why the elders are more suitable than the lower house members for this committee. Then election of the members, they are not elected but they are nominated by the chairman of Rajya Sabha. Then the terms of office till the next committee is nominated. So, there is no fixed term for Committee on Subordinate Legislation. Then the chairman appoints him or her from amongst the members, that is the Rajya Sabha chairman appoints the chairman of Committee on Subordinate Legislation amongst the members of the committee. Then the functions of the committee is to inspect whether the rules are against the constitution, that is the subordinate legislation, whether it is against the constitutional tenets and whether they are against the parent law or any other law enacted by the parliament, then whether they keep any court of law out of their jurisdiction, or whether they give retrospective effect for any actions wherein the constitution primarily doesn't give that power of retrospective legislation. So, when the constitution doesn't give retrospective powers, even the delegated legislation cannot give the same. Then it involves expenditure from Consolidated Fund of India. So, actually Consolidated Fund of India can be used only after the permission of the parliament. So, if the rule or a legislation it is using the fund, then it has to be enacted like a law and it cannot be passed via rules or executive orders. Then it appears to make unexpected use of power confirmed by the constitution or the act. So, only the expected use of power has to be sanctioned via executive order, and unexpected use of powers like encroachment of central government to the states or maybe encroachment of legislature towards judiciary. So, such unexpected wielding of powers are treated as unconstitutional and such rules or regulations shall be barred from implementation. Then have been unjustifiably delayed in its publication or laying before the parliament. So, if any executive order or a rule, if it is delayed from publication in the Gazette or if it is delayed from being lying in the parliamentary house, even then the rule or the subordinate legislation stands to be void. So this is all about Committee on Subordinate Legislation. Then coming to next, the department related standing committees. So friends, there are 24 department related standing committees and each have 31 members, that is 21 from Lok Sabha and 10 from Rajya Sabha. So as of now, these department related standing committees, they are the largest committees, that is they have the maximum strength. So we know that PSC and the Committee on PSUs, they have 22 members, and Estimates Committee, it has 30 members, and department related standing committees, they have 31 members. And then the 17 department related standing committees were formally constituted with effect from 1993. In 1993, the DRSCs were set up for the first time and 17 DRSCs were set up by then. And then in 2004, they were increased from 17 to 24. And these members are to be nominated by the Speaker of Lok Sabha or the Chairman of Rajya Sabha respectively. That is, these 21 members are nominated by Lok Sabha and the 10 members are nominated by Rajya Sabha. Then, the term of office of these committees does not exceed 1 year. So, this committee is having a fixed term, that is 1 year, just like the Public Account Committee or even the Committee on Public Undertakings. Then, these committees are serviced either by the Lok Sabha Secretariat or the Rajya Sabha Secretariat, depending on who has appointed the chairman of the committee. So, if Lok Sabha appoints the chairman, then Lok Sabha Secretariat will provide the secretarial service for the committee. If Rajya Sabha does it, the Rajya Sabha Secretariat does the same. So, this is all about Committee on Departmental Related Standing Committees. Then coming to next, Production Linked Incentive Scheme. Friends, coming to a brief background on Production Linked Incentive Scheme, that is, it was a part of National Policy on Electronics by IT Ministry to give incentives of up to 4 to 6% to the electronic manufacturers. That is, mobiles, laptops and other electronic gadget manufacturers are provided an incentive of 4 to 6% according to this National Policy on Electronics. And then the aim was to invite foreign investors, promote local manufacturers and generate employment. So overall, the productivity of the electronic manufacturing has to be enhanced via this production linked incentive scheme. Then the first sector targeted was the large scale electronics manufacturing in April 2020. So large scale means the very large scale integrated devices or the very large scale integrated circuits are concentrated in this scheme. And then by the end of November 2020, 10 more sectors were added. So in 2020, not only the large scale electronic manufacturers, but 10 schemes were added. And then in Union Budget 2021, 13 schemes were listed under the production linked incentive scheme. So now the number stands to be 13. So we will remember this, and the scheme will be implemented for 5-year period, and around 1.97 lakh crores have been allocated for this scheme for the financial year 2022. So this 1.97 lakh crores are also worth remembering. Then come to more about the PLI scheme. The 13 sectors are as follows, that is the mobile manufacturing and specified electronic components, that is the mobiles, laptops and others. Then drug intermediaries and the active pharmaceutical ingredients, that is the APIs or the inputs to the drug manufacturing or inputs to the drugs are also included under the PLI. Then manufacturing of medical devices, then automobiles and auto components, then pharmaceutical drugs. So now both the active pharmaceutical ingredients and the pharmaceutical drugs are included under the PLI scheme. Now specialty steel, that is those steel used for specific medical and other purposes. Then telecom and networking products, then electronic or technology products, then white goods, that is air coolers and LEDs, then food products and textile products and technical textiles, then high efficiency solar photovoltaic modules and advanced chemistry cell or the battery technologies. So these are the 13 production linked incentive scheme sectors. And come to more about PLI scheme. So we will take up this active pharmaceutical industries and we will discuss how PLI actually works. That is, selected manufacturers of 41 products which cover all the identified 53 active pharmaceutical ingredients are being selected. So 41 products are being selected, but however, overall almost all the active pharmaceutical ingredients are provided with the incentive. Now, how is the incentive provided? That is, the rate of incentive will be 20% for the fermentation based bulk drugs and 10% for the chemical synthesis based bulk drugs. Friends, we know that in the large scale electronic manufacturing, it was only 4 to 6%. but now here it is 20 to 10%. So here we can say that the incentive percentage differs from sector to sector, and it depends on the ministry which is handling the project, or ministry under which the jurisdiction of particular sector comes in. Then the scheme is applicable only for greenfield projects. So only for the new setups or the new plant setups these incentives are applicable. Then financial incentive shall be given on the incremental sales over the base year 2019-2020 for a period of 6 years. So we know that overall the scheme provides for 5 years, but for this sector it is for 6 years. And then it is on the basis of incremental sale, that is over and above 2019 and 2020, how much you will incrementally increase the production. On the basis of that, incentive will be provided. Then the scheme shall be implemented through a project management agency, and that project management agency shall be nominated by the Department of Pharmaceuticals. Then the tenure of the scheme is from fiscal year 2020-21 to 2029-2030. So it is a 10-year duration, and within this 10-year duration, any 6 years wherein you have an incremental increase in the production will be provided with the incentive. That is, out of 10 years, any 6 years. So this is how the production linked incentive scheme works. Friends, the percentages, the periods and the year may be different, but almost all the sectors they have the similar kind of incentives. So we will not by heart, we will understand the logic. So this same will be applicable for all others. Now come to next, the Swamitva scheme. Friends, Swamitva scheme was recently launched, and what is it? It is the survey of villages and mapping with improvised technology in village areas. So this scheme is mainly related to surveying the village and mapping it. So it is a central sector scheme, not a centrally sponsored scheme, and it is purely funded by the central government. Then it aims to provide the record of rights to the village households and the property cards to the property owners. So for the houses and the house owners, the record of rights of the houses are provided, and for the property owners, the property cards are provided. Then Gram Panchayat and community assets would also be surveyed under the GIS mapping, and the maps would be created. So GIS, Geographical Information System, will be used to assess or survey the Gram Panchayat and community assets. Then demarcation would be done using the drone surveying technology. So drones are used here, and then the scheme involves establishment of continuous operating reference system or the core system. Friends, this is basically a surveying technology wherein the sensors and detectors are being placed and they are networked to form a proper mapping scheme, and mapping is done thereafter. Then it establishes ground control points and georeferencing and ground truthing and demarcation of lands. So all these are related to surveys, that is controlling the ground points and then providing a reference to the geographical terrain, and ground truthing is mainly collecting intelligence and storing the data. Then demarcation of the lands, that is demarcating the lands that belongs to different owners. Then awareness campaign is also included in the program, and then enhancement of spatial planning application, that is Gram Manachitra. Friends, Gram Manachitra is the app that is provided for village surveillance and mapping, and this is to be extended for this Swamitva scheme as well. And then updating the Gram Panchayat development plans. So based on the new surveys and maps, the Panchayat development plans will also be updated. Then setting up of project management unit at the national and state level. So for the sake of mapping, the project management units will be set up both at the national and state level. And then development and maintenance of scheme dashboard. So in order to track the progress of the scheme, a dashboard is maintained, and even the feedbacks of the citizens are being provided, and that is being recorded. Then documentation of best practices are conducting national and regional workshops. So in order to create awareness and in order to pursue the program, the workshops are being conducted in various places. Then coming to more about Swamitva scheme, it covers all the villages eventually. So now in the beginning some selected few villages are being mapped, but later it will be covering all the villages. Then over a period of 5 years, from April 2020 to March 2025, the project will go on. That is, it is having a period of 5-year duration. Then who are the stakeholders? It is the Ministry of Panchayat Raj, the nodal ministry. Then Technology Implementing Agency is the Survey of India or the Mapper of India. Then the State Revenue Department and Panchayat Raj. So even the State Revenue and Panchayat Raj departments, they work hand in hand with the Panchayat Raj Ministry at the center. Then local district authorities, that is district administration, Zilla Parishad and others will also take part. Then property owners, that is the house owners and the land owners, they will also take part. Then Gram Panchayats will also be taking part, and lastly National Informatics Center and the GIS division, especially for the storing and maintenance of data. So all these are the stakeholders of the scheme, and here we can see how the project is going on right now. So here the Chuna marking or the line demarcation has been done in 50,000 villages, and in the other 50,000 villages drone survey has been completed, and in the 40,900 villages future extraction has been completed. So here we can assess various performances that is going on in the project, and we can assess its implementation efficiency. So this is all about Swamitva. Coming to next, aspirational districts program. Friends, why was it in news? Because UNDP report lauds aspirational districts program and recommends it for replication in all other parts of the world. So it considers the aspirational district program as the role model and fit to be implemented in other parts of the world. Now coming to more about aspirational districts program. So this program is visioned to renew interventions in most backward districts of India. So it is particularly for these most backward districts, and then it is anchored by the Niti Aayog. So Niti Aayog is the planner and propagator of the program, and then based on the convergence, collaboration and competition. So this program involves convergence and collaboration of central government, state government and the local governments. And then 115 districts were identified from 28 states, and at least one from each state is selected. So this is how the selection is made, that is 115 totally and one from each state. So these are the district being selected. Now individual ministries have assumed responsibility to drive the progress of the district. So health development by health ministry, then environmental upgradation by environmental ministry, then education ministry. So the respective ministries, they take care of the respective development. Then the objective is to monitor the real-time progress of the aspirational district. So as and when the programs are being implemented, the real-time progress is being tracked and traced. Then ADAP is focused on 5 areas, that is the health and nutrition by the health ministry, education by education ministry, agriculture and water resource by the Ministry of Agriculture and drinking water and sanitation. Then financial inclusion and skill development by Ministry of Skill Development and Empowerment and basic infrastructure. Then with the states as the main drivers, ADP or the aspirational district program seeks to focus on the strength of each district, identifying the low hanging fruits for immediate improvement. So whichever reforms that can be done with the minimum cost and at the earliest, those are chosen and they are being implemented. Then the progress is measured and the districts are once again ranked in order to track and trace their progress. So now coming to more about the UNDP report. Friends, the report finds that aspirational districts have outperformed the non-aspirational districts. So coming to the first one, compared to non-aspirational districts, in the aspirational districts, 9.6% more home deliveries are attended by a skilled birth attendant. Then compared to non-aspirational districts, in the aspirational districts, 5.8% more pregnant women with severe anemia are being treated. And then 4.8% more children diagnosed with diarrhea are being treated. And then 4.5% more pregnant women registered for antenatal care within the first trimester. So compared to non-ADs, the aspirational districts, they have 4.5% more reporting of pregnant women within the first trimester. Then 406 and 847 and 1580 per 1 lakh population have been registered under Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana and Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana respectively. So compared to non-ADs, ADs have 406, 847 and 1580 more registered in these following schemes. Then Malaria Mukt Bastar Abhiyan in Bijapur and Dantewada district has reduced malaria incidences in these districts by 71% and 54% respectively. So there is a huge decline in malaria incidents in these two districts because of Malaria Mukt Bastar Abhiyan program. So these are the accolades given by UNDP towards aspirational district program, and that is why UNDP suggests this ADP to be implemented in almost all parts of the world. Now come to next, the ranked choice voting system. Friends, democracy works best if the people aren't forced to make all or nothing choice with their vote. Friends, we know that in the current voting system, we vote for only one candidate. So if that candidate loses, then our preference will be none of them. Or in other words, if the person whom we have voted, if he loses, then any other person whom we hated, he will go on to become the elected representative. So instead of that, a ranked choice voting system makes sure that we will rank 5 to 6 persons in a preference, and any of the preferential candidate will get elected. So at the end of the day, any of the persons we preferred rather than we hated will go on to become the representative. So this novel scheme is adopted in Australia, Ireland and Malta, and recently Northern Ireland, New Zealand and Scotland have also implemented it. And in the New York City's version, the voters get to rank up to 5 candidates from first to last on their ballot. So in New York, opportunity is given to rank 5 candidates in an election. And here, if someone gets 50% plus 1 after all the first choices are counted, then the election is over and the candidate wins. And if no one gets 50% plus, then it's on to the round 2, that is the second preference votes are being counted. Then the person with lowest number of first place votes is eliminated, and that candidate's voters second choices get redistributed as votes of other candidates. So this is very similar to the election for MLCs and Rajya Sabha members, but however, this is not a complete proportional representation system, friends, because in the proportional representation system, the nation as a whole is one constituency, but here in the ranked choice voting system, every constituency goes for a preferential voting system, and it is cumbersome as well, and it is time consuming, and it is also expensive. So we have to wait and see whether Government of India implements this. Now come to next, the Bodoland Territorial Council. Friends, why was it in news? Because elections to Bodo Territorial Council were held last year, and now coming to more about the council, it was constituted under the 6th schedule to the Constitution of India in 2003. So it was constituted under the 6th schedule, and it was constituted long back in 2003. And it was constituted after signing of Memorandum of Settlements between the Government of India and Government of Assam and also the Bodo Liberation Tigers. So by Memorandum of Settlement, the Territorial Council came into picture. Then the council aims at bringing about accelerated progress to one of the most backward regions. So the progress in education, health, ethnicity, religion, so all these are taken to the care by this Bodo Territorial Council. So now the area, the BTC's jurisdiction is over 4 districts of Assam, that is the Kokrajhar, Baksa, Chirang and Udalguri. So these are the districts which come under the jurisdiction of Bodo Territorial Administrative Council. So friends, here why the Territorial Council? Why not the Administrative District Council? The only reason is that it consists of 4 districts, not only 1 district. So if there is only 1 district, then the name is Administrative District Council. But if there are more districts, then it is Territorial Council. I hope you got the difference. Then coming to communities, major communities residing in the Bodo Territorial Council are Bodos, Assamese, Bengalis, then Koch Rajbangshis, then Rabas, Garos, Adivasis, Muslims and Nepalis. So these are the major communities. Then coming to more about the Bodo Territorial Council, that is election to 40 constituencies of the council was scheduled on April 2020, but it could not be held due to COVID-19. Then in the view of the expiry of the term of Bodo Territorial Council, the Governor of Assam, Jagdish Mukhi, he assumed the administration of the BTC. So he took over the administration. So now what is the implication here? The Governor of Assam, he has the complete control over the Bodo Territorial Council, and this takeover was in exercise of powers vested in him under the subparagraph 2 and para 16 of 6th schedule in the Constitution of India. So the takeover is also mentioned in 6th schedule itself. And also in Article 356, it is mentioned like, if elections are postponed for unavoidable reasons like wars, epidemics or natural disasters, then the governor concerned, after obtaining the consent of the president, has the authority to appoint other administrators to assist him. So as per the Article 356 and also as per the 6th schedule, the governor took over the administration of Bodo Territorial Council. Then come to more about the 6th schedule. The 6th schedule of the Constitution, read along with Article 244 Clause 2 and Article 275 Clause 1, provides for decentralized self-governance and dispute resolution through local customary laws in parts of Northeast, which are mainly tribal areas. So the aim of territorial council or the autonomous district council are it is decentralized self-governance and dispute resolution along with the implementation of local customary laws or the protection and upliftment of the local laws and ethnicities. Then it contains provisions as to the administration of tribal areas in states of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. So friends, we know that these 4 states are the 6th scheduled states and we can remember as ASME Tremi, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. So this is all about the Bodo Territorial Council. Then coming to next, Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. Friends, why was it in news? Because the Rengma Nagas in Assam have returned to Union Home Minister demanding an autonomous district council. And this came amid a decision by the central and state governments to upgrade the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council into a territorial council. So friends, we know the differentiation between an autonomous district council and the territorial council. So now the central government is making the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council, which was a district council, into a territorial council. So in this territory, several districts are being demarcated. So out of this territory, the Rengma Nagas, they are asking for a separate district autonomous council or they are asking for a separate council of their own, which is apart from Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. So in this context, Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council becomes important. So KAAC is an autonomous district council in the state of Assam for development and protection of tribals in the living area. Then the council is constituted under the 6th schedule of Constitution of India and administratively functions under the government of Assam. So just like any other autonomous district council, it was established under 6th schedule and it works under Assam government. Then coming to more about autonomous council, most of these autonomous district councils are located in the northeast India, but 2 are in Ladakh, a region administered by India as a union territory. So it is not only restricted to northeast India, 2 autonomous district councils are present in Ladakh as well. So we will discuss in the next slide what are those. Now presently 10 autonomous council in Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram and Tripura, that is ASME Tremi, are formed by virtue of 6th schedule and the rest being formed as a result of other legislation. So only these 10 autonomous council which are restricted to these ASME Tremi states are established under 6th schedule. Other autonomous districts are established by a legislation not under the constitution's 6th schedule. Now coming to powers of the autonomous council, the judicial powers. Autonomous district council have powers to form courts to hear cases where both parties are members of scheduled tribes. So only those cases wherein both the accused and the victim are belonging to the scheduled tribes can be heard by this autonomous district council courts, and the maximum sentence is less than 5 years in prison. So only smaller cases which are punishable to the imprisonment of less than 5 years can be taken up by this autonomous district council courts. So smaller cases and only the cases involving the scheduled tribe people can be taken up. Then tax and revenue. Autonomous district councils have the power to levy taxes, fees, tolls on buildings, animals, vehicles, boats and many others. So they have effective taxation powers as well. So this is the conclusion we can draw from this. And coming to next. So here are various subjects which come under the 6th schedule. So whenever there is a territorial council or a autonomous district council established, so under them land management, forest management, water resource, agriculture, cultivation, formulation of village councils, then public health, sanitation, then social customs, money lending, all those things will come under the jurisdiction of autonomous council. Then come to next, Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council. Friends, why was it in news? Because the National Thermal Power Corporation, it recently signed a memorandum of agreement with UT of Ladakh and Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council to set up India's first green hydrogen mobility project. So because of this green hydrogen mobility project, the Ladakh Autonomous Hill District Council came into picture. And more about Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council. It is an autonomous district council that administers the Leh district of Ladakh, and the council was created under the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Act 1995. So this is not under the 6th schedule of the constitution. This is under the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Act 1995. And then the council has a total of 30 seats and 4 councillors are nominated by the government. So out of 30 seats, 26 are elected and 4 are being nominated. Then the executive arm is composed of a chief executive councillor and 4 other executive councillors. So totally 5 executive councillors and 1 is the chief. Then the autonomous hill council works with the village panchayats to take decisions on economic development, healthcare, education, land use, taxation and local governance. Then the administration of Union Territory of Ladakh looks after law and order, communication and higher education in the district. So on the broad, law and order, communications and higher education are taken care by the Union Territory of Ladakh and not by this autonomous council. So these are out of the jurisdiction of autonomous council. Then Leh, which is a Buddhist dominated district of Ladakh, has demanded the implementation of 6th schedule. So currently Leh is not satisfied with this autonomous council which is established under a legislation. So it wants something which is under 6th schedule alone. Then an autonomous hill council has also been established in the neighboring Kargil district, that is the Hill Council in Kargil, which came into existence in July 2003. So there are 2 autonomous council in Jammu Kashmir, that is in Ladakh and Kargil, which are established under a legislation, not under 6th schedule. So this is all about Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council. Then coming to next, right to recall. Friends, why was it in news? Because Haryana government recently passed the Haryana Panchayat Raj Second Amendment Bill 2020. So as per the bill, it provides the right to recall for the members who have elected the representatives. So this provides for right to recall the elected members of Panchayat Raj institutions. And moreover friends, the bill also carries other provisions like it gives women 50% reservation in these rural bodies. And it also provides 8% reservation to the more disadvantaged among the backward classes. So within the backward classes, those 8% is provided for the backward among the backward classes. Then it allows the recall of village sarpanches, then members of block level panchayat samitis and district level zilla parishads if they fail to perform better. So all the 3 tiers of local governance are being included under this right to recall. Then what is the procedure? So to recall, 50 members of the ward or Gram Sabha have to give in writing that they want to initiate a proceeding. So a 50% of the members giving in writing is a very cumbersome procedure, and purposefully the procedure is made tough so that not everybody comes up for the right to recall and only the serious attempts are being encouraged. And then this will be followed by a secret ballot in which the recall will require 2/3 members voting against them. So not only the secret ballot but also a 2/3 majority is required for the right to recall. And why secret ballot, friends? So the candidate who is going to be recalled, he should not get to know that who is voting in favor of the recall. So all these arrangements are for both the safety of the citizens and also the safety of the candidate. Then come to more about right to recall. Friends, though right to recall is a new concept in India, M.N. Roy, he spoke about it long back in 1944, and he had proposed for allowing for representatives to be elected and recalled. So both election and recall was mentioned by M.N. Roy. And then Representation of People Act 1951 only provides for vacation of office upon commission of certain offences and does not account for general incompetence. So general incompetence or failure to perform better are not the criteria for vacating a seat of a public representative. And along with that, the public dissatisfaction or the dissatisfaction of the electorate is also not a ground for vacation of seat. Then former Lok Sabha Speaker Somnath Chatterjee also sought the introduction of a system of right to recall of a legislature to ensure accountability. So Somnath Chatterjee has also spoke regarding that, and the right to recall also exists at the local level bodies in Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and Chhattisgarh. So friends, Haryana is not the first government and it is not the only government to bring in right to recall. It is already being present in Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and Chhattisgarh states. So this is all about right to recall. Then coming to the last part. Friends, the very definition of knowledge is power. So people say that knowledge is power, but people use knowledge differently in different circumstances. Some of them use it for government jobs, some of them use it to achieve name and fame, some of them use it to earn money. So how you will use it is left to you, friends. But however, make the best use of knowledge. Don't shirk it. I want all of you to love the gaining of knowledge. So when you do this, you will study happily, you don't study hard. And when you study happily, friends, even after you get into civil service, even after you become IAS officer, or even after you getting the first rank, the very next day of result being out, You wake up in the morning and you take up the Hindu newspaper or Indian Express and start reading just like you did yesterday. So this is the true love towards knowledge. So develop such a love, you will excel more and more in your life. Do it. All the very best. Good luck, friends.